Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China. And for the record, I am Jerry. There are some fakes around. When you read an article that says this in the headline, what are your first thoughts? Of course, Beijing has plans, and one of those plans is to build an airstrip on an island, but the island is disputed. It's clear, isn't it, that Beijing is bad here. Beijing is doing something it shouldn't be doing. Well, it's clear until you look at the real story. I don't know if the story's problem lies with the writer, Annika Burgess, or the Australian ABC's editorial team which published this article. But let me show you how we're being manipulated by media headlines that don't match the reality. In the first paragraph, we get an inkling that this story might not be all it's cracked up to be. The article says, China may be building a new airstrip, but it's too early to tell. So in fact, China may not be building a new airstrip at all. And that's in the first paragraph. Okay, let's move on. The next paragraph, it states that China might be constructing an airstrip on Triton Island, which is also claimed by Vietnam and Taiwan. So now we've had a third reference to this new airstrip, and we've had the introduction of Taiwan as a claimant of the island. According to the United Nations, Taiwan is not a country. I don't say this, the UN says this. So the claim on the island is disputed between China and Vietnam only. We could argue all day and night about the Taiwan question, but until Taiwan is recognized in the United Nations as a country, it can't claim islands anywhere. A 2007 book called A Modern History of Chinese Borders describes how in 1946 the island was legitimately claimed in the international community by the Republic of China. In 1949, the Republic of China was defeated in a civil war, and since 1971, the People's Republic of China has been recognized as one China. So there's another ABC deception here. There can't be a dispute between China and Taiwan over ownership. That's clearly not possible, as there is only one country called China, and Taiwan is a part of that country. Even if it's not, it doesn't have a claim. Map Carter is not an official organ, but it lists Triton Island as part of China. CSIS is not an official organ, it's a think tank, but it lists Triton Island as an occupied outpost of China and has records of Chinese constructions there going back a long time. Even Wikipedia, which I hate to cite, states the administration of the island is the People's Republic of China. Furthermore, as we find when we read all the way down to the last line of this article, the Paracel Islands, which are where Triton Island is located, are actually not disputed. Vietnam may have an historical claim on them, but they were taken after the defeat of the Vietnamese Navy in 1974 by the Chinese Navy. China took over the entire chain and claims them as their own. Now, it is possible that some Western minds might view this differently, but before they do, they should look at their own history and decide if China should give back islands that A, they had a legitimate historic claim on, and B, they legitimately won those islands during a military conflict. What would the Western countries need to give back to avoid being accused of double standards? In the fifth paragraph, the writer tells us that the airstrip would be 600 meters in length, but in the next paragraph, they refer back to CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which has a department called the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative. And one of their analysts said, and I don't make this up, this is true, one of their analysts said, early analysis does not point to a runway. So we've had 6 paragraphs and 4 suggestions that China is building an airstrip, but then an expert says they aren't. The analyst went on to say it's too small, it's too narrow, there is no evidence of an apron or a taxiway or any other indicator that this is a runway. So ABC, it's not a runway. Why does your headline indicate to your readers that it's a runway or an airstrip? But ABC, it gets worse. There's another consideration when we look at this story. Hainan Island and the city of Sanya are actually quite close to this. Sanya has a massive airport. I've been there. It can easily be shared with, and in fact is nominally shared with, but not used by, the People's Liberation Army Navy. So what would be the purpose of building an airstrip so close to one that's already there? Another point is that China has made it clear it is not militarizing this region. Xi Jinping said this in a meeting with Barack Obama, and former Premier Li Keqiang has said this too. Western analysts and Western media don't believe the leaders of China, and they keep suggesting, inferring, or indicating that China could militarize. In fact, as we've clearly seen here, the ABC aren't saying China is, they are inferring China is doing something it's not. And they're assuming their readers won't be smart enough to see through it. ABC describes itself as Australia's most trusted news source. But here we have a great example of why they can't be trusted to report fairly or competently on China. Remembering the headline, here's what it said. New construction raised questions over Beijing plans to build an airstrip on disputed South China Sea island. And here's a quick summary. The island isn't disputed. Beijing has said it isn't militarizing the island, and an analyst says this doesn't look like an airstrip. But for some reason, ABC and many other news outlets around the world would like us to think that it is. We should ask ourselves why that is so. And while we ask ourselves why is it so, we should consider this. The same story with the same photographs was run by US News, the Navy Times, Associated Press, and many others. And here's what makes me so mad about it. The ABC has missed an opportunity here because the scoop apparently belonged to AP. It was amplified by so many different media outlets around the world. But only the ABC in all the media that I've read actually confirmed this is not an airstrip. Only the ABC posted information from an analyst who said this is not an airstrip and hasn't got the makings of being one. So here's the message to take away from this. Australia's most trusted news source went the extra step of verifying that this is not a correct headline, but then used the same scaremongering tactics to suck us, gullible readers, into believing it was. And when the ABC do that, they cease to become our trusted media source. They just become one of the propaganda pack. Why would they do that? Thanks once again for watching another Jerry's Take on China, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.